Welcome to the CTO Playbook, the podcast dedicated to helping CTOs excel. I'm your host, Adam Horner. With 30 years in the industry, including over a decade as a CTO, I have coached and mentored more than 100 engineers and tech leaders. This podcast covers crucial topics for CTOs, providing insights, strategies, and practical advice to build your own playbook and help you excel in your role. Today, we're diving into the multifaceted role of the CTO. Whether you're an aspiring CTO, a new CTO finding your feet, or a seasoned veteran looking to reflect on your journey, this episode is for you. We'll explore the different types of CTOs, the common paths to the role, and how to identify your unique strengths and weaknesses. Let's get started. Let's start off with the journey of a CTO. Many people think becoming a CTO is a straight line, but in reality, it's more like a winding road with many turns and detours. What do you think of when you picture a CTO? Well, it depends, right? It's the standard engineer's answer. There are all sorts of CTOs and kinds of experience with multiple routes into the role. There is no one unicorn type of CTO that fits into any and all CTO position. So, understanding what an organization needs and what kind of a CTO you are will help you find a great fit, identify your skill gaps and growth opportunities, create a playbook that suits your strengths, and excel in that CTO role. So let's create a playbook to figure it out. I'm going to share a bit of my personal journey to illustrate this. When I began at Satago, which was a very early stage SaaS startup to help businesses get paid on time, I was heavily involved in the coding. I was working side by side with our original developer, Dmitry Gusev. We were in the trenches together, writing code, debugging, and iterating based on user feedback. It was an exciting time, full of late nights, early mornings, driven by passion and caffeine. And as the company grew, my role started to shift. I wasn't just coding anymore. I was leading the architecture, delegating tasks, building a capable team. And this transition wasn't easy. Moving from doing to delegating required a change in mindset and skill set. It was during this phase that I really started to understand the different stages a CTO goes through. Daniel Jarjura's The Startup CTO Growth Cycle frames these stages perfectly. I've gone through these stages myself, so let's go through them together. The first stage is the Maker CTO. This is where I started at Satago, coding and developing the product hands-on. You're in the thick of it, understanding every line of code and every user feedback. The second stage is the Expert CTO. Here you start to shift from coding to leading. You become the architect of solutions, delegating tasks, and mentoring your team. This one was a significant shift for me, moving from doing to ensuring that the team was doing it right. This is the point at which my knowledge of the problem space became more important than my knowledge of the code base. But this transition was slow and subtle, and I barely noticed it at the time. It was only really in hindsight that I could realize it. After that comes the third stage, the Manager CTO. This is where you start to focus more on strategy, team leadership. You become the bridge between the technical team and the executive team. I experienced this at Satago when we pivoted to our fintech strategy. It required a lot of strategic thinking and team coordination, and this shift was obvious to us even when it happened, because we pivoted completely and wrote a whole new section of our product in a new space. We pivoted from SaaS to fintech. We knew it was mad at the time, and we knew it was a big change. So that change, to me, was really obvious when it happened. Finally, in stage 4, you reach the executive CTO stage. When most people outside the world of startups think of a CTO, this is the stage of CTO that they have in mind. This is where you adopt an executive mindset, prioritizing strategy, company objectives, and embodying the engineering values externally. At this stage, the C-suite, or the executive leadership team, is your primary team, and the various engineering leaders that report to you are your delivery team. For most of my tenure at Realforce, a startup that rebranded from AdPhoenix and is a marketing platform for real estate, which I joined just after Series A, my role was mostly spent at this executive stage. My job was less about the day-to-day technical details and more about driving the company's strategic goals through the exec team and through the engineering team, and representing our technical vision throughout the whole business. It's also important to understand that these stages are logically in order, but not always experienced in order. So there are plenty of CTOs who get promoted into the role at the manager CTO stage, the third stage, or the executive CTO stage, the fourth stage, without necessarily experiencing the first two stages. In fact, the first stage is often better described as a founding engineer rather than a CTO. So, quick recap. The four stages then. We've got the maker CTO, the first stage. We have the expert CTO, the second stage. And we have the manager CTO, the third stage. And the executive CTO as the fourth stage. Now, let's talk about the different kinds of CTOs. Zach Goldberg's The Startup CTO Handbook, which is a great book, by the way, outlines three general types: tech-focused, people-focused, and externally focused. The tech-focused CTO, or chief architect, is all about envisioning the future of technology within the company. They focus on setting up systems and leading the creation of prototypes. Their main goal is technology strategy and architecture. I spent a significant part of my career in this role, ensuring that the tech stack was robust, scalable, well-architected. Organizations that are building a product that needs technical innovation to make the product work will really benefit from a tech-focused CTO. For example, let's think about the early stages of Netflix streaming. So after they'd moved from DVD into the streaming, they needed a technology-focused CTO to create their unique technology platform. This is where a tech-focused CTO will excel. The people-focused CTO, which is sometimes also described as a VP of engineering, is deeply involved in building the company's technical culture. They focus on hiring, team motivation, and internal processes. This role is crucial for creating a motivated and aligned technical team. When I was at Realforce, I took on this role to ensure that our team was cohesive and productive during our growth phase. Organizations that need to build a lot of code efficiently and not necessarily breaking new technical ground benefit a lot from a people-focused CTO. For example, Airbnb, let's think about that before they started hyperscaling. It wasn't technically difficult. It was basically a marketplace. It wasn't selling to a technical audience, but they did need to be organized and efficient. So they would have done great with a people-focused CTO at that stage. People-focused CTOs tend to be really good at processes too. The third type, the externally focused CTO or head of technical sales, head of technical marketing, often works in companies that build products for a technical audience. They spend a significant amount of time evangelizing the company's products, contributing to technical content, and assisting in sales. This role is essential for securing larger deals and establishing a strong market presence. I recently encountered a startup building a new type of database engine that emerged out of university research effectively. The target customers are technical teams in large enterprises, and they would be well set up with an externally focused CTO who was great at speaking to that technical audience and helping to secure the sales process. So how do we, these four stages and three types, how do we bring them together? Regardless of which type of CTO you are, tech-focused, people-focused, or externally focused, you can still assess your strengths and weaknesses and your opportunities for growth against the common four-stage framework. For example, as a tech-focused CTO, you might find yourself deeply involved in the maker stage, ensuring the technical foundation is solid. As you move to the expert stage, your focus will shift to leading architectural decisions and mentoring your team. In the manager stage, you'll be strategizing how to align technology with the business goals. And finally, as an executive, you'll be driving the company's technical vision at the highest level. Similarly, a people-focused CTO will initially build and motivate the team as a maker, develop strong internal processes as an expert, lead strategic initiatives as a manager, and embody the company's culture and values as an executive. An externally focused CTO will start by building relationships and evangelizing the product as a maker. They'll be contributing to technical content and support sales as an expert. They'll be leading external technical strategies as a manager, and then representing the company's technology externally as an executive. But no matter your type, the four-stage framework provides a roadmap for your growth. You'll just predict different outcomes based on your type and which stage you're operating at. So now that you know what type of CTO you are and where you are on the four-stage growth journey, let's look at two related topics. What organization are you in and what does it need from you? And how do you best develop yourself from where you are to where your organization needs you to be? Determining what type of CTO your organization needs requires understanding your company's stage and strategic goals. Let's go through some rough guidelines to help figure it out. Every organization could benefit from any of the three types of CTOs with a well-rounded team. However, there are some great fits. For example, an organization that sells a technical product to a technical audience would benefit from the externally focused CTO, an evangelist who can communicate effectively with that audience. Conversely, if you have a particularly strong senior developer or architect on your team, a people-focused CTO might be a better fit to build and maintain a strong technical culture. So, to assess the stage that your company is in, let's consider a few questions. 1, how many developers are there? 2, how many teams of developers are there? Not teams overall, but just the teams of developers. And 3, how many layers of leadership are there between the CTO and a typical junior engineer? If there are fewer than 3 developers, the company is likely in the maker stage. So rather than having a CTO or a CTO by name or a founding CTO, you've probably got a founding engineer. If there's 1 team and fewer than 10 engineers, the company is probably in the expert stage. So the CTO there knows a lot about the product and the problem space and is building technology and the team to build that. If there is more than 1 team and 2 layers or fewer between the CTO and the junior engineer, the company is probably in the manager stage. More than 3 teams, more than 3 layers, then you're probably at the executive stage. These are very rough guidelines and they don't always fit. If you can be confident from some other metrics, use that. Ideally, as a CTO, you will be at or slightly ahead of the needs of your organization. The reality is there is often a gap that most of us as CTOs close by trial and error and learning from our own mistakes. If there is a mismatch between what the organization needs and the capabilities of the CTO, a couple of things can happen. The CTO might need to level up in certain areas to meet the organization's demands. On the other hand, if the CTO is ahead of the company's needs, they might not need to be full-time. In such cases, considering a part-time or fractional CTO might be beneficial, but that's a big topic and we'll cover that in a future episode. Understanding what type of CTO you are and what type of CTO the organization needs is critical to understand your strengths and weaknesses because they're relative to each other. Identifying your strengths and weaknesses is a crucial step in your journey as a CTO. Self-assessment is key. One tool I find particularly useful is a SWOT analysis that helps you understand your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. SWOT, hence SWOT. For instance, when I transitioned from a technical role to a managerial role, I realized that my strength was in strategic thinking, but my weakness was in people management. This realization led me to seek feedback from peers, from mentors. I also took some courses and I read extensively on leadership and management. It's important to continuously learn and adapt. Seek feedback from your team and peers and then use tools and frameworks to get a clear picture of where you are, where you stand, and where you need to be. Don't hesitate to get a coach or a mentor. Honestly, if I had known there were CTO coaches out there, it could have saved me from making many mistakes and learning a lot of things the hard way. So let's recap some of the practical things and what we can do. So, number 1, understand the different stages of a CTO's growth. Recognize where you are in your journey and what skills you need in order to develop and move you to the next stage. Identify your type as a CTO, whether you're tech-focused, people-focused, or externally focused. Understand your strengths and therefore where you have gaps that you could improve. Align your role with your organization's needs. Understand what type of CTO your organization needs at its current stage and be prepared to adapt and evolve to move to the next stage. And lastly, continuously assess your own strengths and weaknesses compared to what your organization needs. Use tools like a SWOT analysis, seek feedback, and consider coaching to help you grow. Remember, the best CTOs are those who can adapt, lead, and inspire across all facets of the business. So hopefully that gives you a playbook to figure out what kind of CTO you are, what stage you're at, what your organization needs, and what you need to grow and develop. Understanding the type of CTO you are and aligning with your organization's needs is crucial for success. By recognizing your unique journey, your strengths, and your areas for improvement, you can better lead your team and drive your company forward. If you found today's episode valuable, please visit our website to join the CTO Playbook community and access more resources and support for your CTO journey. The link will be in the show notes. I also encourage you to send in your questions and topics you'd like to hear about. This podcast is for you, and I want to make sure we're addressing the issues that you care about most. Thank you very much for listening all the way through to the end. Just before you go, I'd like to ask you for one thing in return for putting together all these episodes of the CTO Playbook podcast for you. Please leave a review. Wherever you're listening, whether that is Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whichever platform you're on, leaving a quick review will help more CTOs find the podcast and enable me to create more great episodes. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the CTO Playbook.